Rock service or anything like that? Did you ever do that growing up?
I did. I did Fiddler's Green, gosh, many years ago. It's been at least a decade, so it's been a hot minute. How about you? What do you do?
We did Fiddler's Green a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever went to the Red Rocks one.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've done the Fiddler's Green. I remember sitting through a snowy Easter once. It's such a crapshoot what you're gonna get.
Oh, exactly.
It's gonna be 40 or 80. So
especially with April being one of our snowiest months.
Yes, it is.
And we're gonna get some more snow.
I know.
Boo. Well, it's a beautiful Sunday morning. We are actually sitting down here with a very special guest on the Sunday Sit Down, Mr. Adam Courchaine. How's it going, Adam?
Great. Next Sunday's Easter, but it's also my birthday, so you can
really?
celebrate all kinds of things.
Oh,
Nice.
Do you get special eggs for your birthday?
I don't know. It's never lined up quite like this, so we'll see.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, a holiday birthday. That's awesome.
Having a birthday on Easter, that's great.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Nice. Get little presents on your birthday. Presents. So, yeah, well, thank you, Adam, for coming back.
Well, thank you for having me.
We had an interview with you, gosh, maybe a month or two
Yeah.
ago.
About 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, thank you. So you're from Ascent Concierge Health.
Yes.
I always have to make sure I'm saying it right.
Perfect.
Ascent Concierge. I better say concierge. I'm French, so better say that correctly. Thank you for coming back.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is great.
So for those of you that did not catch the interview, really quickly. As well on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
That's
So
right.
all over the place. So you can see Adam in full Technicolor, which is lovely.
And if you do have any questions or comments or anything like that, you can just post them, and then our producer will let me know, and we can try to answer any questions.
Definitely, please do. Yeah, on Facebook, social media, you can send them in on your app as well if you're listening on the K4CO Radio app, or on LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere you would like. So if you have any health question, Adam is your guy. There's no such thing as a silly question, because I'm going to be firing a lot today.
Fire them away.
Give our listeners and viewers a quick overview, kind of general overview of what you do and why you got into the field.
Okay, so back in 1973, no, I'm just kidding.
Awesome, you were born.
Yep.
Okay.
Now everyone knows my birthday. Banging through things, and I was like, well, how do we do it better? And I did the deep dive, and my wife Dara and I were chatting. She's like, it's the same stuff a different day. If you just go to a different practice or do something different. And that's where I discovered and created. I discovered the idea of direct primary care. And direct is between me and the person, not me and insurance, their insurance company, their employer, and all that other stuff. So we opened up New Med Direct Primary Care. I think that was 2018. And it was great. I answered to the board of medicine and no one else. So I don't have to answer to the United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Optum. Nope. So if you come to me and you're like, hey, Adam, what's the best plan? I don't say, well, let me ask somebody's permission.
Right.
I say, this is the best plan for you. Risks and benefits. Do it. Don't do it. That's up to you. And the wonderful opening to like, holy gosh, like we learn all this. We have such advanced information and now we can practice it. So that was the start. Does that answer the question?
It does. I love the wide range of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you say pediatrics through seniors, I mean, that is...
It's just birth to death. That's it.
Well,
If you have a heartbeat, we're the place for you.
that's amazing because you truly, know the body and you know at every different stage, which is, I think, personally going through, and I know we talked a little bit about this before, I think everyone on planet Earth, if you've been on the planet for more than 20 years, you've probably had some form of doctor involvement at that point.
Sure.
And so I find that when people specialize in one thing, they don't know about any other part of the body. So what's great about your background is you do know. You really know the body inside and out without being too gross.
Yeah, it's that. But the cool thing is, there's a time when you need to pull into Jiffy Lube and get your oil changed. Right. So if your knee is broken, you go to a knee surgeon and they fix it. That's awesome. We need that. That's amazing. If I have a heart attack today, send me to the hospital. They'll take care of me.
Right. Might cost you an arm and a leg, but...
Yep, and that's why we should have insurance for the catastrophic, unplanned for stuff. But the idea of how often do you want that to happen? Like, when do you want your tires to blow out in the car? Like, not that often. Hopefully never.
Yeah.
So what do? Proactive, preventative care. Kind of feeling a little down today. You're like, well, why is that? You get to it because, by the way, you're a complex organism with a few billion things going on. So, waiting till you have strep throat, there's a time and a place for that, but I don't want to go in with that. And I'll just tie it into this. Like, people say, like, should I go to the ER for this? And I lightly say, don't listen to me on this. I'm not giving medical advice, but like, if I think I might be dead in 24 hours, ER.
Right.
Everything else should be primary care. And if I can't get in for some reason, or they're closed and I have a cut, urgent care.
Right.
It should be that. It's not I need a refill of my chronic blood pressure meds. They said they can't see me for 3 weeks and can't refill it. So I have to go to an urgent care to see some stranger who says, you need a refill. Here's $300 for the visit, and here's a refill.
Right.
That is ridiculous.
Right.
So the holistic view of things, because, like Josh is not an elbow. And Sarah, you're not a thyroid, by the way. You're a person.
Right.
So there's so much complexity that goes into it.
Right.
So anyway.
Is a lot of direct primary care really preventative maintenance? Is that
It should be.
Okay.
So when we started it, it was probably a couple of years in. And again, I'm far from perfect. I don't know everything. I don't know anybody who does. But it was a couple of years into it. And all of a sudden I realized that a lot of the other DPCs out there, they're all better than insurance-based primary care. I will say that because they have more time.
And so no direct primary care uses insurance, is what you're saying.
There are hybrids out there, but for the most part,
most part, no.
Nope.
Okay, gotcha.
There are some that dibble dabble and we will bill Medicare, or some things like that. But pure DPC, no.
Right.
Because that's the problem. So when you go in, Josh, if you want to have your 20,000 mile, checkup on your car, and you're like, I'm going to call Farmers Insurance. First of all, they're going to laugh. And secondly, they're going to say, yes, we got you an appointment. It's in Utah 4 weeks from now. And you're like, the car's making some funny noises. And you're like, no, I want to use the insurance. Now, meanwhile, the guy next to you is like, well, how much for the visit? And they're like, $1,000. And he's like, all right, get it done today. That's freedom. So it's the appropriate or misuse of insurance. Same thing with my house. If I call up and I'm like, one of these windows looks really old. I want a new window. Again, they're going to laugh and they're going to say, well, $5,000 deductible or whatever it is. And you're like, I really want a new window because it's drafty and all this other stuff. I'm going to buy a new window. That's freedom. You go buy a window, buy it from wherever you want and do it whenever you want. So health really should be the same thing. Now, again, if I have a heart attack this afternoon, no, we don't need to have a discussion. I need care now, and I have insurance for that.
Right.
I had a knee scope in December. I used insurance. I had a colonoscopy last year. I used insurance.
Right.
The bigger unplanned for expenses.
Right.
So I guess your question was, are all DPCs proactive, preventative?
Yeah.
To different degrees. So yes, because there's more time. So you go to an insurance-based practice, and the average is probably less than 15 minutes, about 9 minutes per visit. Plus they have to write a note. So 9 minutes. Let's get to talking.
Right.
If you go to a DPC, usually it's 30 to 60 minutes. Well, that's cool. We can relax a little bit, talk about, I forgot to mention that mole in the back of my leg, and that's fine. But it was a couple years into the practice where I realized that we're, Dara, my wife / nurse, and I, we're just like so passionate. Like, you seem kind of sad today, and digging in a little bit deeper or whatever it is, and like you get to know all the families and all that stuff. So not all of them, I've realized, go as deep into it, and I know that because I've had some patients that came from another DPC, and they're like, "Wow, no one ever explained a CBC blood test like that." Mm-hmm. It's like, well, we did it. Let's talk about the results, as opposed to everything looks good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's definitely more relationship building instead of checking the boxes. Mm-hmm. It is. I think hopefully, I hope everyone actually can experience the relationship piece of it at some point in their life. Because you do. I hate feeling like a number, and I hate feeling disposable.
Unless you're number one.
I've never been number one. I've never felt like number one. You know, when you go in and it's, like you said, it's 9 minutes and we have the next patient there. So how well can they understand? Exactly. They're not addressing the underlying symptoms of what's going on. It's just on the surface.
I have been humble enough to laugh at the end of a few of our visits. Maybe it's at the end of an hour. And I've said to a few people, it's kind of funny. I don't even think we talked about anything medical today. Right. We talked about your family. We talked about, what you're eating and all that stuff. And they're like, that's why I come here. Yeah. This is what we're doing. We're doing wellness.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So I know that this is a huge blanket question.
Ooh, all right.
But because of every shape, size, age, everything under the sun, if you could tell someone one thing to be healthy, is this your food and diet? Is this your exercise? Is it more your mental? Is it more the emotional? Like where, generally speaking, because we hear about this every single day on the news without exaggeration.
Sure.
It's this vegetable, it's this fruit. If you walk for 10 minutes, it's always, it's something.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm always curious when people have been immersed in this world for 30 years, what do you say if you could do one thing today, what would it be?
So I'm going to give you a lousy, jokey answer. And the answer is E, all the above.
Okay.
But if we had to get more specific, I'll actually step back because the 5 pillars I talk about a lot is, as an animal, Sarah's an animal. So are you, Josh. Beasts. But
I am a beast.
I know you are. I could tell by the look in your eye. But 5 things. Any animal, a zebra, needs food. And zebras aren't like, should I have crackers today or salmon? No, you're a bloody zebra. You eat grass. Whatever. I'm not a zebraologist or whatever it would be. See, you need
That's
food.
the technical term. Okay.
Zebra needs to movement. Sleep. They need to rest. Stress relief. When that lion almost eats the crap out of their hind leg, they don't just be like, wow, that was a stressful day. I'm just going to think about it. No, they run around. They burn it off. So they have stress relief or restorative time. And maybe not zebras. I don't know enough, but sense of purpose. And potentially for the humans, like that's how many people like look good, they got all the good markers and they're so sad, or stressed, or they're in that wrong life and then they just have their breakdown, or maybe they kill themselves or something. So they're all huge, but potentially, and we've been thinking a lot about this one lately, is the sense of purpose type one. And I was thinking a lot yesterday about this because I'm weird, but we're tribal people. We are. So for 250,000 years, we're swinging in trees or doing whatever. And then we decided to have tribes, groups of people, just like monkeys. So in your group, Sarah might be the hunter because Josh, you're just not a good hunter.
I just like gathering, just,
you might be the
same place.
You might be the cook and I make baskets.
There you go.
And she doesn't make fun of me because you're a man making baskets. No. I make great baskets and she needs the baskets to move the meat. And if she doesn't get the meat, man, I'm hungry. So we look out for each other. So if she breaks her hand, I'm going to crap my hands and say, holy dear God, we're not going to eat. Sarah, what can I do to help you? So we had support. We had our family, the tribe. And then as we've evolved in the last number of years, we have a culture now where like, you don't need a tribe. You know, we're humans. We're new humans. So you plug into the matrix. The next thing you know, I heard it put in one of the books is, you can stumble around a city for a week and not see a familiar face. So unconsciously, what does that do for your brain who's looking for someone to watch my back? No one's got your back.
Right.
Like holy, like that, it just eats at you. So then how's your decision making with eating food? Might not be awesome. And then movement, like I just don't feel like doing this stuff anymore. And then my sleep is disrupted and I'm stressed all the time. Next thing you know, so it's all important when you said the one thing. So our little tribe is our family, and how many people are alienated from their families. So anyway, I can talk for hours about this, but I think that's pretty interesting. So tribal. So who are your people?
Right.
And it could be the person at the coffee shop. That's fine. You guys probably have a little tribe in here, and I'm visiting the tribe and all that stuff. But you have each other's back. If Sarah didn't show up today, Josh, you'd pick up the pieces and move on.
Right.
You'd show up, but maybe you were busy doing something. I won't say you got in an accident because that would be terrible. So yeah.
I love that you brought up sense of purpose. So we lost a dear friend recently, and so that has been brought up a lot. When people retire, I've seen the demise happen pretty quickly with some people. If it's like, now what?
Yep.
And it's, what is my purpose? So, and like you said, there's so many different elements to it, right? So if you're not working, maybe that gave you purpose, but now what are you doing? What are your hobbies? How are you mentally taking care of yourself? And what are you going to do every day to keep you going? Whether it be the physical or especially
And the mental.
in the
And,
mental,
I mean,
it's who are you going to go around?
Right.
So my very first job post college was to work at a bank.
Yep.
And these people who were retired came in every single day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're taking out your $5, but it was very social for them,
Yeah.
especially on a Saturday morning. They would sometimes sit there for 3 hours. I'm like, they're reading the newspaper, and they had their own little tribe, like you said. And it was their social, mental, emotional just spot. So it gives you a sense of being, who you are, how you fit in this world. So it is all encompassing, but sometimes if I'm really busy through the day, I'm like, all right, I need my 10 or 15 minutes of something, whether it be to go. Mine is always outside and trying to walk at least a little bit or soaking up some sun. So I feel a little rejuvenated.
Yes.
Because, something usually gives, at least in my world.
And what is that going to be? You.
Mine is,
You're gonna give.
True. When I don't get sleep for a couple nights, man, I'm rocked. I really am. And especially if I don't eat, I get the hangry thing going on. And I'm like, all right, I'll stop. We have to go eat right now.
Yep.
Because you start to feel icky and all that stuff. But
Quick side note, in the military, we're not allowed to use sleep deprivation because it's torture. But we do it to ourselves all the time.
yeah.
It's crazy. Back to the other thing with the retirees. Maybe I picture four things. So some people retired like, I got my lazy boy. I'm going to sit here and do nothing. And they tend to not do extremely well.
Yeah.
They wither away. That's what I noticed.
Exactly.
'Cause I
Start
worked with
to-
retired people,
Yep.
and yeah.
The other people say, someday when I retire, I'm going to get in good shape. And yes, we can always move forward. But if you're a train wreck, that's tough. Some people say, I'm finally done with that, whatever career job, and I'm going to be an artist or whatever. And that's cool. That's really good, actually. Like, hopefully you didn't destroy your whole life doing a job you hated, but a job is not necessarily your life. And then I say, I'm kind of screwed with this, but some people are passionate about what they do, so it's part of their life. It's kind of what I do, and I think you guys like what you do too. So when you retire, do you put it away, or do you kind of? And I have a patient who's 78 and working full time. She's a firecracker, going hard. She loves it.
Right.
So like, do you have to retire? I mean, maybe not. I don't want to have to go to work necessarily, but I might want to continue to work.
Right, exactly.
So it's interesting. Or maybe at that point, if you're the master, maybe you're the mentor. You show up. I actually have another patient. He's 76, retired CPA. He still goes into work once a week. I don't know what he does there. I mean, he just what he does. So he didn't have to put it to rest and be like, thank God that chapter's over. So yes, either you're going to retire and do nothing, and because now you're the zebra who just lays around all the time. Probably not going to work well. Lions are coming. Or you, what was the second one I said? Retire. Oh, and then what was the second one? Same already
Actually-
fit. So there's the people who go to the lazy boy,
Yes.
people that say, dear God, this job is done. Oh, I'm going to get healthy. What I'm
Healthy,
doing.
that's
Oh,
right.
I'm going to
exercise.
get in
Finally
shape
get
and do all the
healthy, yep.
stuff.
And you said
And,
become
like,
an artist. Yeah.
Yep. Just leave it all behind and do something new. I have another person who's in her late 50s and she's going back to school. She wants to take some biology classes and maybe be a chemist.
Nice.
You're like, oh, it's too late. Like, she's
never
doing
too
it.
late. Yeah.
And then if you're passionate, just, maybe do your things, but you still have to focus on who you are.
I did want to throw out, we did have a question on social media right here, and I think this is from when we were talking about direct primary care and really getting into talking and everything like that. I think that's what is the relation between remote virtual doctors versus what you were talking about?
Got it.
Okay.
There's a lot of overlap. What I mean is if it's purely remote, like when you get sick and you call some sort of a teledoc or something like that. I'm not saying it's bad, but you get a stranger on the phone who says, who's this, Becky? Okay, Becky, you just told me you have some issues and do this, do that. And that's fine. It's not inappropriate, but they don't know Becky.
Right.
So what they're doing is putting together the algorithm, and then she gets the standard care for everybody.
Right. Everybody all in the same. Yep.
Treat everybody the same.
Exactly.
Which can be okay. But what we do, and I say this, is my patients, if you call and say, oh God, this belly pain is terrible, what do I do? I probably need to press on your belly. Come on in.
Right.
So we do office visits. Some people say, hey, quick question. I just wanted to ask you about my cholesterol from last year. It was this, that, whatever. Do I need to come in? No, of course not. We can text, we can phone about it, or we can do a video. Mm-hmm. Or what if I have a lot of sniffles and all this stuff's going on? Sure, we could do a video. Do I really need to press on your face? Probably not.
Right.
But I say it's appropriate medical care, but I know Becky.
Right.
Right.
And I know when she's a little bit not when she's a little bit reactive, I know she never does that. Something might be going on. Mm-hmm. So I know her. And a good story is before I was doing this direct primary stuff and the longevity things, I was in urgent care and I had this woman come in. She's probably in her early 20s, but she was really sick. And I was like, what's going on? She goes, well, I called the whatever person, and they said I had a UTI, so they put me on a medicine. And then I called back 2 days later, feeling worse, a different medicine. And now she got a kidney infection, and she looked horrible in the office. So we did a urine. This was probably 10 years ago, but I think I ended up sending her to the ER. She was a sick person. Mm-hmm. They didn't do anything inappropriate, but they didn't know Becky in this case, we'll say.
Right.
And that's where sometimes it's better than nothing. If you get no care, or you can just call up with a simple thing and get the stranger, that can be okay, but I don't love it. Wouldn't it be better if you knew the person? So
I found it very awkward. I remember, during the whole pandemic thing, or I'd go to the doctor on the phone, and then they'd be like, all right, open your throat and point the camera down your throat. It was like, oh, okay, here's a script. I'm like, what? Seriously, that's what it's going to do right now?
And there's a time and a place where that could be okay. Because I just had somebody the other day who's like, oh, my throat's red. I think I have strep or whatever. And they actually showed me the thing. And I was like, well, no, based on the left side, that's something called a tonsillith. It's a little stone thingy. That's not strep. Lymph nodes here are not swollen. You have a little sniffle. Not strep. Not strep. You don't have a fever. But come into the office if you want. Or let me know. Text me in the morning. Let me know how you're doing.
Right.
Those types of things.
I have a question about something a little more specific.
Ooh.
Allergies. So
Specific and so broad.
well, okay, good.
Fire away.
So springtime, stuff's flying around.
Mm-hmm.
So I have very specific allergies. Mine are more cat, horse related.
Are they flying around in the spring?
They are sometimes. It depends how much I can kick something. But for generally speaking, stuff flying around from the trees and grass and pollen, all this crap that's flying around. So you have the over-the-counter stuff. So you're taking your Benadryl and Afrin and all that stuff, eye drops. Do you recommend that you do the over-counter stuff, or do you actually do a whole blood work panel and do shots? What is your typical proactive approach there?
So it depends. If someone says, hey, every time I go visit Josh's house with his cat, I have a problem. What do I do? Well, that's easy. Take the over-the-counter. In the over-the-counter, like you're talking about Claritin or Tecalegra, those are antihistamines. So if I see his cat and I have a histamine reaction, in general, I might have redness, swelling, warmth, itching,
Right.
that kind of stuff. So if I take a couple of Zyrtec, day before, day of, day after, and then on top of that, if I need a stronger antihistamine with side effects of sleepiness, that would be Benadryl. Maybe I take that at bedtime. Like, that's okay. That's a Band-Aid fix. Afrin is potentially the devil.
Okay.
It's okay to be used for a couple of days.
I've heard that Afrin can be very, very dangerous.
Well, anything can be dangerous, but it can be really problematic, I'll say. So, and again, I don't know if you want details, but what happens is, so the drug is called oxymetazoline, and what it does is shut off the nasal secreting membranes. So great, if I have to come on here and I have a runny nose, a couple sprays, and it stops dripping
Right.
for about 12 hours. Awesome. So if I get a really bad, nasty something and I can't sleep because I'm snoring all night because I can't breathe through my nose, perfect. That's when I should use it. 3 to 5 days. And I have had people on it for a year. And what happens is, if they miss a dose, floodgate. They get rebound congestion. So, and that's why, like, it's not going to kill me or anything like that, but it triggers the body. So, like, right now, if I'm allergic to your cat and I'm drippy and I say, stop dripping, brain's still sending the signal. It's just not making it through. So, if I keep doing it and I live with a cat, and next thing you know, a month into it, the signal's getting strong. It's like, dear God, please drip. And you're like, nope.
Yeah.
So they call it rebound effects. So it's not bad. You get a bloody nose. I'm not giving medical advice, but if you get a bloody nose, it's a vasoconstrictor. So we use it in the ER. It's different. There's a time and a place. Well, details for later. But so it can be fine. But if I have chronic nasal stuff and I need to treat here and I have allergies, maybe something like a nasal steroid. So Nasonex, Nasacort, Rhinocort, Flonase. So anyway, back to your question is, it has to be an individualized plan. So here and there, sure, do the antihistamines because it's a histamine thing. But some people are so reactive. And I remember in urgent care once, I had a woman, she came in for something, but her meds, she would take 2 Zyrtec in the morning, which usually it's 1 per day. She'd take 2 in the morning, 2 Claritin at night, and 2 Benadryl like every 4 hours. And I was like, dear God, woman.
Wow.
What are you allergic to? She goes, no, my allergist said the earth. And I was like, oh, can't avoid the allergen in that case. So that's the simple version. But one thing that we've kind of figured out is sometimes I'm not allergic to A, B, or C. But when you mix them, I have a problem. So when someone says, what is it you're allergic to? You're like, I don't know. I didn't do anything different, but it's that combination. Okay. So for a lot of people, it goes back to nutrition. So there's something in your food that maybe isn't bothering you, but it's triggering a little something. So I'm making this up just as an example, but maybe milk, maybe dairy for me just throws off a little bit. And then the cat at Josh's house, Andy has a certain tree that's budding. So maybe those 3, which is really hard to figure out. So maybe I go back to food. Maybe I do some elimination things and all that. So might be too detailed for what you asked.
No,
Sarah.
it's not, because I know a lot of people who are seasonal, and it comes up every single year. So in that case, if it's just reoccurring, do you recommend getting the test where you are injected with the actual
scratch test? You mean?
Well, scratch test, and then there are some that actually inject you with the allergens.
So so it depends. If I have a sneeze twice a year, I don't care.
Right.
Who cares?
It's a sneeze, exactly.
If it's significant, and I tell people when they come in with the gunky stuff, head cold, sinus infection, we use infection a lot, but 3 things cause those: allergies, viruses, bacteria. And I tell people you can have all 3. So what predisposes? So most things are not bacterial. Most things are viral. So if you call and you get the sniffles and a headache and body aches, it's a virus 95% of the time. But so bacteria doesn't usually just come. It's a freeloader. It wants warm, dark, moist things. So if you have those on your body somewhere, they can grow, so especially in my face or in my lungs. So things that will predispose me to be gunky and gooey and all that stuff, like allergies can do that.
Right.
So, and that's why it could be problematic. Because again, if I sneeze a couple times, who cares? Or for a day, it's terrible. Who cares? But if I keep doing it more chronically, I'm predisposed to picking up that cold when you cough in my face or whatever it is. So that's when it becomes a problem.
Okay.
So some people, it's really significant, and they're on antibiotics way too much, or steroids, which could do some things. So then it would be worth looking into it.
Right.
And everything, I always go back, I say this a lot, risk versus benefit. That's why for me, sniffling once a year, who cares? Like risk, pretty much nothing. Benefit of going in, annoying. But for the other people, there's a few things they can do. They could do the scratch injection thing, which basically they make a little disruption in the skin, which is your barrier to keep the junk out. And then they put on these little serums of whatever. They could do anything pretty much. Horse hair or dog dander or penicillin. And then if your body reacts, what is that reaction? It's a histamine reaction: red, swelling, warmth, itchiness. And they say, oh, you're allergic to horses. And then you either avoid the horses, or if you're like, I'm married to a horse, then how do I desensitize?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where it's those kind of injections that are done either weekly, monthly, whatever it is, which is great. But then I met an allergist who was like, oh, we have these troches, these melty tabs that go under the tongue. It's nice because you can do it from home. It's not covered by insurance from what I remember, but minus all the co-pays of going in for your weekly or monthly injections, it works out well. And it works extremely well because that's what they were using in I think he was at Yale, all of their resident studies and all that sort of stuff were the sublinguals. So why don't we do that in the regular world? Insurance doesn't cover it. Oh, okay. We're back to that.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is it true that your body dynamics, and I know that that's not the correct term,
I like it.
but that it changes every 8 to 10 years? Because people can grow into, out of, like, your whole chemistry can change. Like, I used to not be allergic to metal, and I cannot wear earrings anymore. My body has changed with that. Same thing with allergies. I can now, when I was a kiddo, I could not tolerate milk at all. And now I can. It still is painful at moments, but I have a stronger tolerance. So, yeah.
So, and I can't wear earrings either. It's probably because I don't have any holes in my ears, but I can't
I have some
tolerate them.
clip-ons for you.
So maybe you're talking about a couple of things. So remember the A, B, and C? It's not one thing, it's a combination. So it could be that's why you can't tolerate things that you used to.
Well, what's interesting is I can wear rings. I have something in my belly button. And my ears, nope. It's instant. What makes my ears different than any other part of my body?
Well, they can't see your ears, but they're triangle shaped, and maybe that's why. No. But the other thing too, as I say, is the body gives you feedback. So like just as an example, someone has milk, they don't do well with it, and they're gassy and have some evidence later on. The body, or same thing, if you eat garbage food, you get a stomach ache.
Right.
But if you keep doing it over and over and over, the body tries to be efficient. And sometimes it's like, you know what, you don't listen, like whatever, I'm not going to say anything anymore. And you're like, I tolerate it fine. And I know that because some people who are doing a certain thing, eating whatever, if they do an elimination, go off it for a month or two. And then they go back to like, oh God, like it feels horrible.
Right.
It's because the body's talking to you again.
Right.
So, and that makes it really challenging because with regard to food, what not to eat, it's easy. I can give you a list. But then what should I eat? And that's really challenging. And I'm making this up. But if I said, oh, cucumbers are good for you, right? Yeah, unless you're allergic to cucumbers.
Right.
But they're bad. No, they're good. No, it depends.
Yeah.
And that's really challenging to figure out is what should I eat? Now back to the tribe 50,000 years ago. I don't think I said this last time, but if Sarah's mountain people, she's like, you know what? I'm a fruit eater. They're like, there's no fruit up here, woman. She's like, I want fruit. And they're like, eat the bison.
Right.
She's not like, I'm a vegan. That's the silliest thing ever. We are bison hunters. Now Josh is from the Amazon, so he eats fruit all the time and sits in a tree. And he's like, you know what, guys? I'm going to be a carnivore. And they're like, that's ridiculous. He's like, fruit's bad for diabetes. They're like, not our people. We're made for fruit.
Right.
And it's a silly little thing, but just the idea of knowing what I'm supposed to eat is elusive.
Yeah.
And back to your allergy question, is the skin test and all that stuff. There's also food allergy test.
Right.
Can't do everything because there's billions of foods. But there's food sensitivity panels, and I find that those could be tricky because if I have something called leaky gut, it shows that I'm sensitive to everything, even though I'm not. But a food allergy panel, there's times when you can look at different things in the immune system to see if it's reacting to things, and then do an elimination thing. Try it without it and see if you feel better or if your blood markers improve. It's not that hard. Costs money though.
I am curious. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no.
I want to watch them fight.
We really don't. I am curious because a lot of us are told, here's what you quote unquote should do. That's my least favorite word, along with normal. I hate those two words. But when people, it's January, these are my New Year's resolutions.
Yep.
I'm going to eat right. I'm going to exercise. And then come March, all goes to hell.
March, that's lasted a long time.
That's true. That's why I didn't even start this
Usually
year.
it's
I'm like,
February.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
February. Exactly. Gym memberships start to fade out.
Yep.
How do you get people and number one motivated to do something? Because sometimes it's my gut feels a little nasty with milk or gluten or whatever, or I'm going to try and get healthy, which is losing weight, exercising, drink more water. How do you prolong it with people, especially maybe those that are perpetual dieters or fasters? I know we talked about that a little bit last time, to stay motivated and stay the course.
So I just thought of David Goggins, who's this social beast guy, but he talks about that. I don't want to motivate you because that'll get you to do something for a day or two. But if you inspire someone, then they'll make a change. So if I say you can't eat donuts, you could be like, I won't eat donuts. And then a week or two later, you're like, screw that guy. What does he know? I'm going to eat the donuts. Risk benefit. So I don't say don't eat the donuts. I say eat the donuts. This is the outcome. This is the consequences, whatever. And if you decide to do this different, this is what you could expect. That's part of it, is to understand. Same thing as if you tell me, I always go to cars. I know nothing about cars except to put gas in them. But if you said, do your maintenance on the car, I'd say, why? Well, because you're supposed to. Why? Because it'll last longer. Well, who cares?
But then if you don't do it and something happens,
Yep.
then you're kind of inspired to do it because you already went through that.
Well, and what happens is someone wakes up. Someone realizes they're on the side of the road with the smoke coming out of the engine and steam and all that stuff. And they're like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
I should have done what the person told me.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't understand it first.
Right.
So that's why having an honest conversation. And then another thing with inspiration is to say, for a lot of people, they may have children, right? And you say, well, okay, your kids are 12 years old, they're 20 years old, you're free. And I don't think that, but just whatever. And you're like, great, I'm done. Like, are they ever going to have children? Do you want to be a grandparent at any point?
Right.
And do you want to be the one in the wheelchair with the shawl over your legs being wheeled in? And there's some people that's appropriate because of life, but for most of us, like no. Or would you rather be the grandparent and they come visit you at the nursing home once a month? Or do you want to go to their games and maybe walk up and down the sideline? Like, what do you want to do?
Right.
So if I said, I want to be healthy, that has no meaning. What does that mean?
Right.
But if you say, I want to be able to pick up luggage, put it in the plane compartment up top so we can travel with my spouse or friends or whoever, or maybe the grandkids, and maybe I want to get on the ground and crawl around with those little babies and play. Okay, now that's making sense. So like a good example, I've heard this a bunch of times, is diabetes. You say to someone, you have diabetes. Oh, that's bad, right? Well, it is what it is.
Right.
What does it mean? Can I reverse it? Can I do different things? Like, no, just take the pills, you'll be fine. And then take the insulin. But nobody what is the outcome? Like, oh, it's the number one cause of adult blindness. Oh, that's kind of lousy. I always joke the little blood vessels are the most sensitive. So eyes, brain, heart, kidneys, and then the men get this one, and penis. And they're like, oh wait, what was the last one? What do I need to do not to have that thing fall off? So they're
I'm gonna need you to email me that information.
So no, but kidding aside, but your question is a great question. And again, if I say you need to walk for 15 minutes, 3 days a week, you're like, fine.
You're not going to want to. It just sounds like a chore. You need to do this.
Yep.
Sounds.
Or the stupid word exercise. You need to exercise. You said the word.
Yeah.
It's work. So if you like doing work, great. But if you say movement, you need to move your body like a zebra. You need to, don't run like a zebra. They're too fast. But
you don't want to go to the gym, but it'd be nice to walk down the street.
Yep.
Go down to the river or whatever like that. Walk up in the Colorado Mountains. Yeah.
Yep.
Something that you enjoy.
What you're describing, Josh, is playing. So when you were 3 years old, you didn't exercise. You played.
No, you played.
You played. You crawled around. You threw a stick. You ran after it like a dog. Like whatever. You rolled around with the dog maybe. And now, please, we're adults. We don't do that.
I do.
You should.
If the dog were in here, I'd be on the ground.
That's why I know you're a touch over 25, but still 25 looking because you play.
You're
Players. That's right. Did want to jump in real quick with another question from social media, and I kind of like this one. It does go back to your direct primary care. Busy executive, the DPC model may not work for them. Is there an option in the medical community, a concierge type of option, who's someone who travels a lot, looking for a resource that can work?
So, and I've thought about this a lot lately because I'm a moron and did two different things. So we had our direct primary care, 2018. So Dara and I, and I started off doing regular care better, which is cool. And then I started learning about hormones. Now, do I think a 24-year-old should be taking a bunch of hormones? Probably not. You're 24. It should work.
Right.
And Sarah maybe mentioned the word normal. There's average, which is not necessarily normal, which is not necessarily optimal. So average is, if you're 40, you better have some high blood pressure. 45 is cholesterol maybe, and by 50, diabetes. That is average. It's definitely not normal for this animal, and it's certainly not optimal. So figuring those things out. So anyway, I got on a tangent there. But so we started doing some hormone therapies, certified in that. Now I'm actually doing some advanced certifications, which is pretty fun. It's stimulating to think of how do I take better care of the humans and my family and stuff like that. And then we still do some stuff with psychedelic medicine and ketamine and things like PTSD, anxiety, depression. Like, okay, that's really interesting. And then functional medicine. I think we were chatting about that a little bit ago. We can go into more detail, but if someone's really passionate about something, ask them. They're probably dealing with it. You know what I mean? If someone's really good at Alcoholics Anonymous, they probably were or are an alcoholic. They're sometimes the best people.
Right.
So when you come to me and tell me, hey, I'm making this up, but like you're an alcoholic, you shouldn't drink. Like, who the hell are you? And you're like, because I was there. Like, wait, what was that? Tell me your story.
Right.
So anyway, we do a lot with the functional medicine and all that stuff. So in answer to your question, if someone's crazy busy, just talking to my brother about this, he works on oil platforms, and he's like, oh God, yeah, the place is like, you have to come back in 3 weeks. He's like, I'm going to be offshore. Someone like that can they call in? Can they do a video? Like, who on earth doesn't have video now? Like pretty much all of us. So that would be appropriate. So direct primary care for wellness can be really good. Then a couple of years ago, we decided to go a little offshoot, and that's where Ascent Concierge Health came in. And we said so yes, there's the maintenance plan. That's DPC. It's really good. It's going to help the long-term plan. But if some people, maybe they don't have as much craziness going on, or maybe they need the wake-up call, kind of a hard hit, that's where we came up with this program of Ascent Concierge Health, which is a deep dive discovery part, looking at the labs, maybe a heart scan, maybe a full body MRI to give that's when you bring the car in for the full assessment. I'm thinking of buying this car. It's a classic, but is it a piece of garbage? And if it is, I don't want it.
Right.
You don't say that with their body, but whatever. And that's maybe the inspiration for change. And then maybe it's a once a month master class where, and I scribble these down because I can always forget, discovery is, I thought it'd be cute for Colorado. So we have 9 summits in 9 months. So there's discovery, there's physical fitness, metabolic, nutrition, cardiovascular, cancer, all the stuff. So it's not overwhelming. It's a little bit of hand-holding. Not even hand-holding, but it's a deep dive. Usually it's about an hour, which you can do remote. And this is the why. Why should you care about cancer? True prevention.
Right.
Little side note, like a mammogram doesn't prevent cancer.
Right.
Colonoscopy doesn't prevent cancer. They find it. They're a screening test, which is wonderful. But what prevents breast cancer? And maybe not a lifelong habit of eating carcinogenic garbage food or maybe smoking or obesity or whatever it's going to be. That's prevention, which nobody's doing. So anyway, so the concierge type thing was to say, how do we create a program that answers the question of education about my own body, and how do we then come up with a plan for the next 10 to 30 or 40 years?
Right.
So anyway.
No, well, that leads into, I had kind of a 2-part question. This came in through, actually somebody's texting me.
Is it your friend?
No.
No.
So kind of in a succinct, because I know, again, this is kind of a broad question, but I mean, the question is...
specific question?
The broad specific. Like, how does one live to 150 years? So it's, again, a very general question, but, kind of succinctly, how do you really promote longevity?
So some of it, the initial part is, are you acting like an animal? Are you being a human, a Homo sapien, not a new human? New human, we're sitting on our butts right now, just sitting here talking,
Right.
which is lovely. But, the zebras aren't hanging, well, they are a little bit hanging around the water hole, but they're not like, hey, it's Sunday. It's my rest day. I am going to lay down and refuse to move. And then the lion's like, I love Sundays.
I was like I was just thinking about lions. They do 3 things: sleep, eat, and get the Humpty Dumpty going on.
Make more lions.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's a nice life.
Yeah. But they don't tend. I'm not a lion specialist either, but they don't tend to like do marathons. They tend to like you said, they're laying down, conserving calories until they're ready to get it. So we're not lions. So what did our people do? Right. Did they do marathons? No, unless they were that desperate to get away or get to something. They walked everywhere. The problem is if we walked maybe a little sprint and killed something, how do we get it back? Do we call Uber? Do we get the wagon? No, you're going to drag it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where the strength training comes in. So, man, I can go off on tangents for days. But you asked, like, how do people do the longevity stuff? And the first thing is the education. Like, you are an animal. And if you believe it, act like it. If I'm really pissed off one day because Josh yelled at me and all this stuff, I could just hold it all inside and be a man. And, like, there will be an effect at some point.
Or you can bite my head off.
I could do that. Or maybe I go for a walk or a run or punch a bag, not a wall. That's stupid. Different things like that. So understand, what am I?
Right.
Oh, you're a pretty human. We sit politely and we only use the proper words. So no, there's days when it's a bad day and maybe I need to go blow off steam or go for a hike. That's another thing. So for the physical activity, like we said, playing, what do you like to do? And if some of that, well, maybe that goes under the stress relief one. But for some people, they like playing chess. So should I tell them that they should paint? No, I like chess. Go play chess then. Or if you like knitting, I'm not going to say, listen, you should be building a garden. No, you should knit.
Right.
Whatever you like, that child within liked to do stuff. And how many of us even remember what that is? Because now I'm so busy and I do all these things. So what I'm getting at for the longevity stuff is understanding truly, like, what are you? And if you understand that, you might say, my life circumstances don't allow me to do that right now. That's okay. And there's a time when you need to grind it out. I don't know if you have a family. I know you have children and all that kind of stuff, but like, take care of your family, like suck it up, get it done. But for how long? Where's the light at the end of the tunnel? And there's times when it's a year down the road. That's okay. The times when you just keep moving the tunnel and you're like, God, it's already been 10 years. Woo. You got to have a wake up call and say, what am I doing? Well, I need to make that nest egg. Do you? I mean, maybe not. Because if you're dead with a nest egg, that's not that useful. Well, I need my family to be taken care of. Maybe they want you. Right. So maybe you need to be here. So that's the understanding who you are. And then reality, what we do in this culture is to say, well, how do I know how I'm doing? Well, sometimes you can get a report card. You can do some labs. We can do some biometrics. We can understand like what's going on. And then we can predict it. So I'll give a specific thing. So I am almost 52, but nobody knows when my birthday is. So that's fine. But when I was 50, I kind of had my thing like, okay, everybody has a fear, like an unconscious fear, like, my brain's going to go someday. I'm going to have Alzheimer's or dementia. Some people are like, oh no, cancer's coming to get me. The four big ones would be cardiovascular, cancer, metabolic, diabetes, morbid obesity, and then, good God.
Brain.
Yep, neurodegeneracy is going. No, kidding aside, but that fear, like I have people that are so fearful. They could be young, they're 40 years old, and they're like, oh my God, I had a little pang of something in my stomach, and I know I have colon cancer.
Right.
Which maybe they do. I don't know. I need to explore that. I don't have the answer for every single person without looking. But if they do it, oh, no, this is an even better example, is a person who goes to the ER 15 times in a year with fear of a heart attack. And I had one guy once send me a message like, oh, I went to the ER because my heart rate was 92. Like, heart rate could be 60 to 100 easy. So why is he afraid? There's a reason. And I joke, not even joke. I say I joke about a lot and I make fun with things, but they're all serious too. So why is there such a fear of death in our culture? And we all know this. There's one guarantee. They say death and maybe taxes, right? But death is coming. Hopefully slowly. No, I don't want to slow death. Wow. I meant not for a long time. I want a quick death. Not for a long time.
There you go.
Okay.
So why are we so afraid of it? As a culture, we're terrified. And maybe it's because we don't even know what it is, because that person went to that place and they were suffering for years and then they sort of died. We propped them up, put them at a funeral, and it was happy, sad, because I got to see the family members and like, what a weird thing. So
I think we're also reminded of it all the time. We're reminded, heart disease is number one in the United States for death. And then, everything from cars to everything we do, it's to get us afraid.
Yes. So fear.
Everything.
Fear is a good tactic.
And the fear part is when you said heart disease. Oh, it's a number one killer. What does that mean?
Right.
And people are like, oh, it's the boogeyman. Like I said before, diabetes. They say, oh my God, it's diabetes. It's bad. Like, yes, that's not good. But what is it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does it do? Like, we don't have that conversation. We say, it does cause me to need insulin. Like, oh, no, that's what we do to slow it down, not to fix it.
Right.
So explain it. So why are we so fearful? And we're fearful because of the messages coming. And the messages that are coming are eat garbage, don't move, don't sleep, have stress, and you know what? Don't need a tribe. So the result of that is the equation adds up to chronic disease. So, and then they're like, be afraid of the chronic disease, but are you a moron if you get high blood pressure? And the answer is no, unless you are. But I can't guarantee you're not a moron, but it's the natural evolution of the equation. So I tell people, I said, listen, you have diabetes. Whatever. You want to move forward or backwards? We can move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the frustration. So the fear of this stuff. What else were we saying? I can keep going about the fear, but
no, it's fine. No. But I don't know.
I don't really know. I don't
even know what you asked,
Yeah.
Josh. What did you ask?
I don't know exactly what I asked because he kind of went on a
Yeah.
little rampage, but well, I want to go back to kind of heart disease. Okay, number one,
yes.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes.
So
The
if you had
killers. I started telling you my darn story.
Yes.
So 50 years old, and I'm thinking like, maybe it's heart disease.
Right.
My mom was dead at 63 from heart stuff.
Right.
That's got to be I've got 13 years. How terrible is that? And I wasn't really, but unconsciously, is that a fear? It was a baby fear for me, but other people have huge fears. So like, what can you do about that?
Right.
Well, you can look into it. And that's when I had a CT angiogram of the heart to look at plaque, because there's regular cholesterol, which is medium. It's not useless, but medium. There's advanced cholesterol markers, which is way more informative.
Mm-hmm.
Things like ApoB, Lp(a), and I had those, and they looked decent. Is that good enough or not? I don't know. So how do I look at, there's plaque buildup. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Heart attack, stroke. All right, now we care. That's the end game.
Right.
So how do I assess heart attack, stroke if I'm checking advanced cholesterol markers? Like, they're very good. Is there something closer? Yeah, this CAT scan of my heart. So I had it. And it's interesting. I will say this because people are like, meds are good, meds are bad. I didn't really like medications. I really don't want them. But as I was laying there getting my little CAT scan thing, I was like, I'm going to have to take a statin. Damn it. I don't like them. They might have some side effects. And then my epiphany hit, which was a really big deal for me. And I said, you know what else has a side effect? Stroke. Heart attack too. Huh. Perhaps if my risk of those is higher, I'll take the meds all day long.
Right.
And thankfully, my score came back as a 0, meaning I didn't show any plaque. Fantastic.
Yeah.
My point there is the fear.
Right.
Right.
Sometimes ask the question and get an answer.
Right.
And that helped alleviate the fear.
Yeah.
Getting the actual test results. So I'm really curious because I think everybody's kind of fearful for different health things, but it's not like you can just go say, okay, I want an x-ray, I want a CAT scan, I want an MRI, I want, all this stuff. But blood work is huge. Correct. Now, people have told me you should get blood work done twice a year. And you should really have somebody who knows it to go over all of it.
Yes.
And I've also heard that there's no one size fits all
True.
when it comes to results. Outside of blood work, can blood work actually test for possibility of lung cancer, possibility of these other cancers without other scans? What do you think is the bare minimum just to settle our fears that people should be doing every year?
So how often should you do blood work? And the answer is, I called it before, a report card. So if you're not studying, you don't need to get a report card very often. So meaning if you're not doing anything, like generically, 6 to 12 months, I guess. But if you're like, oh, Sarah's cutting out the lactose, the dairy stuff completely. I've done it a month later. Like, let's see if that marker changes. So whatever we're looking at, if I'm looking at an inflammation marker, we can do it in a month or two. Do we have to? No. It's a report card.
Right.
So if I'm studying really hard, I want some feedback, I could take a quiz. So same thing with blood work. So is there one size fits all? And again, I'm a child.
They say average. on the blood work, right?
No, they don't.
Or normal, they
Nope.
say.
They say reference range.
Reference range. Okay.
And you say, what the heck is that? It's referencing humans. So if you're 45 years old, they have a pool of all the 45-year-olds. This one could have stage 4 cancer. This one's got diabetes raging. This one's had 3 heart attacks in the range. So therefore, the ranges tend to be very broad because it incorporates everybody, sort of. And with time, we just change the ranges. It's like testosterone over the past 50 years. The range keeps coming down because we're less... I'm joking. We're less manly. No, but we're less optimal. So that's crazy. So that's why when I interpret labs, I say there's a reference range, not normal, not average.
Right.
And then there's an optimal range. So like, yeah, I don't know if I should say these things, but well, whatever.
Say it.
Nobody's listening. It's fine. Thyroid.
Thanks, Adam.
So
People are listening, by the
So
way.
thyroid has a whole bunch of markers, not just one. TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. There's a bunch of other ones. So I like to check them all.
Well, it takes care of your whole body, your thyroid. I mean,
Yep. But the range typically is 0.45 to 4.5. And, when I got my doctorate, they were saying, you don't need to treat people until all the way up to 10. And I was like, but wait, how does the person feel? That's not part of the equation. You treat the numbers. And I was like, yeah. So 0.45 to 4.5. And you say, where do people feel best? And this is not one size fits all, but in general, less than 2. So TSH is the opposite. It's the signal from the brain telling my thyroid to produce. The higher the signal, the more it's desperate. So the higher the TSH, the more low my thyroid is.
Okay.
So
Inverse.
do you wait? Yep, inverse negative feedback. So do you wait until it's horrible, you have no hair and you're pooping out bricks, and gain 50 pounds? Or do you say, listen, maybe you're suboptimal. Is it an option, not a requirement, but is it an option to consider doing something with it? So that's one thing on how to interpret things. And then the other is... what panel do we do? And I joke with people like, there's no all. You don't check the box all. But I have a bit of a comprehensive panel, which I named all. That was the child part of me. I was like, this is awesome. I have an all panel. So I can't click all, but I can. And I've done this on teenagers, is should you check their hormones? Maybe. Again, it's individualized, but like, do they have hormones? Yes. Do I want to replace them? Dear God, no. But it's a reflection of how the balance is. So if they're all jacked up, that might inspire us to do something different.
Right.
What are those 5 pillars that we need to address? So same thing with inflammation markers, vitamin D, B12 folate, blah, 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 blah.
Do you find that you're having those conversations, risk versus reward? You talked about the medication. I know the relationship building is a big piece of it. So is it... Yes, you have back to the hormone level. So if you're dipping in estrogen or testosterone, so if you take this, the risk of cancer goes up, or this is the risk versus reward. Are you having those conversations?
That's called informed decision making.
Okay.
Always have the conversation.
Okay.
And some of it's dispelling confirmation bias. So a quick example is, everyone, I don't know, a lot of people have heard that men, if you have too much estrogen or estradiol, you're going to get man boobs and become emotionally like a baby. And it turns out a lot of times it's the opposite. It's because you have no testosterone or low levels that you're gaining visceral fat, which can cause man boobs, weight gain, and then you get sad because of those things. So some of it's trying to use the real data.
Right.
So evidence-based data, as opposed to, well, I was taught this in school, and I think based on garbage studies that maybe it's bad. Like nothing's good or bad. It's decision-making.
Right.
Does that answer it?
It does. I find that sometimes it is a quick fix and take this medicine or this drug and it will get rid of X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
But then the risks aren't discussed.
That's what we want, is that quick fix.
Well,
As a society, I
true.
think.
I'm not going to disagree with that. But I find in situations for me and other people that I've talked about, like they take certain hormones. This was a conversation I just had, and I personally went through it. And it's, hey, we need to start and try and balance you out. You're going through menopause and puberty at the same time. And I'm going, what the hell is going on with my body? And now I'm, going to be off kilter. So the risks weren't described and they weren't conversed with me beforehand. So it makes me feel now I don't want to go trust individuals anymore. And I'm going to self-diagnose, which is also really terrible to do. So I think having that relationship is so key. and to be very open and honest to say,
Sure.
hey, here's what's going on with your body. Here's what we can do. Here's some certain solutions, but here's also what these could cause.
And the same thing with me, like I tell people I have 2 kids, I don't want any more. You're not my child. So if you come into the office, I'm not telling you what to do. And I describe it that way to say that you're the bus driver. I'm the navigator, a couple seats back. I'm like, Josh, take a left. You're like, screw it, I'm taking a right. That's cool with me, but you might go off the road. So it's giving information as a navigator.
Right.
So what I do tell people is, I just had a man the other day in the office, and his testosterone. So for men, 300 to 1,000. Maybe we prefer 500 to 1,500. So 300 is the minimum, kind of.
Okay.
He's like 121. And I joke, I'm very friendly with my people. And I said, man, have you gone through puberty yet? Like, what the heck is going on here? And he's in his later 50s. And I said, well, it depends. If you're complaining about low energy, libido, gaining fat, losing muscle and bone, all these other things, sleep, we might want to do something about it.
Right.
He's like, I feel incredible. I was like, cool, carry on. We don't have to do something. We don't have to intervene. Now, again, if he's 30 years old and it's that low, something's out of balance. So we should try to do that. Now, if he's 60 years old, it is normal and appropriate for this animal to have its hormones drop.
Right.
So either, I had a friend once say, this 90-year-old needs to grow old gracefully. And the answer is, if you're growing old gracefully, cool. You don't have to do anything. But if you're not, we have options. We might think about that because that might change the outcome, the optimization of your wellness.
Right. Okay.
And Sarah, a lot of, like, I guess without getting into crazy details, hormones, most people, even the specialist, endocrine or whatever, most of them are using old data. I'll tell you a specific story. This is one of the things that I'm doing with this advanced certification, but maybe too much detail, I don't know, but progesterone. You know, so if a woman is on estradiol therapy, she's on progesterone 100% because it protects the uterus from building up a lining, hyperplasia, and potentially even cancer. So it's for that. And sleep and wellness, and it does a lot of other things. So the story goes that a woman didn't have a uterus. So, and I had someone report back to me, she told, someone else told this patient of mine, you don't have a uterus, so you're only taking on cancer risk for no benefit. And I was like, that's old data. It does not do that. So anyway, the worst case scenario, so I was taught by this mentor, is he had a woman with no uterus. And same thing, you don't need this. And he was like, I think she does because it's part of the package. A healthy woman has all of it. So she moved away, and the new doc was like, nope, that only gives cancer, and it doesn't. So a lot of women have heard of endometriosis, which is having uterine tissue elsewhere aside from the uterus. So you can have it in your colon, and that's why when sometimes women get periods, they might get severe bloating and all that stuff because of the uterine tissue elsewhere. So this woman had no uterus, and 5-7 years later, she got uterine cancer other places in the body because she was not on the progesterone. So that's the frustrating thing is you go to the specialist or whoever, and sometimes it's just crazy. Anyway, maybe too much detail for this chat.
No, it's not at all. I mean, that pertains, in a lot
everybody.
of different ways. Exactly.
Yep.
You had mentioned earlier, just a moment ago, about your mentors. I'm curious who your role models and mentors are.
It's going to sound really silly, but there's just so many because it depends on what I'm focusing on. So I have some colleagues in medically, they're good friends of mine, and we bounce things off each other, and that's really important medically. For mentors, you guys know Dave Uesta, like he's for business stuff, he's freakishly good at this stuff. And like, I just talked to him on the way here. Dara, we were just talking on the way here, and she was like, oh, so tired today. Like, I just kind of feel like I'm fuzzy headed. And I was like, maybe that's what relaxing is like. She's like, but you're like ready to go. I'm like, yeah, because I have to be like, let's do this thing. But like, I wanted to be more like that.
Yeah.
Having a chill day, kind of bringing it down. And then it's silly. Well, not silly. Our kids are 20 and 22. And, she and I have been talking a lot, but like they come out with some things and you're like, I wasn't thinking about it that way. That's actually pretty darn cool. So And I guess to get more general is when Dara and I first met, so we're almost at our 25th anniversary. So that's 27 years ago.
Nice.
We were away in Vinyl Haven, Maine, hanging out with some people and a lot of musicians. We're just hanging. No TVs, not really playing on phones. There's probably no internet. It was awesome. And they're playing instruments. We're all
do
hanging.
miss those days.
Yeah, unplugging.
Well, and it was interesting because even then, so it's kind of a half lifetime ago, but we were both on the same page, which was great. You see that this couple over here, and you just felt discourse. You just felt there was some competitiveness, this stuff. And then, Darren, I don't know if you remember this, but Helen and Ollie, they were in their 80s. And I said, they could feel their power. They didn't even need to speak. It was amazing. They were so wise. That I was like, I hope that I have to talk less someday because I talk a lot. But they didn't have to over talk because other people, I have a story. And they were just chilling. And like that energy was amazing. And I was like, I want that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, when we go to a restaurant and we still talk a lot to each other, but we'll see these older couples come in and they will just sit there in silence for like the full hour. I was like, boy, that's either really healthy or really not.
Yes.
It's really cute or creepy.
It is. It's either like I have no more to say to you ever again, or it's like you're just so comfortable with each other that you don't have to say anything.
Yeah. Quick side note: I was listening to a podcast, and there was an older gentleman on, and he was talking about when people are like, "Oh my God, you've been married 50 years! Congratulations!" And he said, "That's not always a congratulations.
Right.
Sometimes there was the inability to speak up and to do what was best, so you both suffered." Mm-hmm. So the assumption is not that it's perfect. Are you actively working toward it? It could be amazing, or it could not be. So that couple, exactly what you just said.
That is
Spot
so
on.
true. How is the relationship? Yeah. Do you go into those too? Is it talk about your relationships?
For the patients?
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. Tell
Yeah.
me about your marriage and your and your kids and your family worlds.
Yep. And and that's why when you ask people about their family, usually they kind of brighten up a little bit, or sometimes not.
Right.
And it's very heavy sometimes. It's an emotional, not a burden, but sometimes, you absorb people's energy.
Right.
So as they're coming to you, telling
Become
you
an
things,
empath.
and, I had someone probably about a year ago talking about, I think their 19-year-old was living with them, which is great, but they had, a little bit suicidal, a little bit just all these heavy, heavy things. And meanwhile, this person's out there like you're supposed to be grinding away and doing this stuff. And I was like, we can just slow it down a little bit. Like, we're not in a rush. Well, what's going on? How can I help?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing. This is what I like about what we do so much is, I guess I should say this, but I was doing a kind of a physical type thing in a teenager a couple of weeks back, and he was there with grandma. And as she was heading out, he headed out the door first. Hey, have a good spring break, whatever. And then she leaned back and said, he's losing his mother this week. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And I know who she is. I hadn't seen her in a while, and I know she had a history of breast cancer. And I was like, I was like, oh my God, thank you. And so they left, and I was like, what do I do with this? So I called the dad, and I said, how's everything going? He goes, oh, good, this, that, whatever. I said, Granny just mentioned this. He goes, oh, yeah. Yep, she's in the ICU, and we're expecting that in the next day or 2 or 3. And I was like, dude, what the hell? Like, not that I'm your best friend and you need to tell me these things, but what can we do? Right. He said nothing at now. And then a couple days later, I'd heard some things. I sent him a message, and and I think Dara came up with this a couple of years ago, but the idea of like, I don't know, like you want to acknowledge something. So I think she found it, but like you can like donate trees in a forest in their memory and all that stuff. So like we try to do that for everyone now. But again, like how is that not important? Like she's 46 years old. Like, yeah, it kind of rocked me a little bit, and I'm not even directly like involved, so
For sure.
if you don't appreciate that and you figure out that maybe they don't want to exercise right now, like,
Right.
ugh.
Well, you're bringing up a whole nother. Yeah. Well,
what
it
I do,
is.
Sarah.
Well, because when you talk about grief and trauma and relationships, I mean, everyone on planet Earth processes things totally different. Some people don't feel it the rest of their lives. Some people feel it right in that moment. And sometimes it's a very long process and it pops up in random moments. So I've always found grief very interesting of how people process that, or when they are traumatized. I mean, that can be a very acute moment, or, it can be something really minor. Like this isn't minor, but maybe a car accident, that happens and you survive it. And
Yep.
then 20 years later, you're driving down the road. You're like, holy crap, I just had a flashback of it. I do that. I was in a car accident a couple of years ago, and it is really random times.
So what do we call that? PTSD. And you're bringing that up because some people have a horrific event happen and they literally are fine. And other people, and I joke and I say they get a paper cut and they're throwing the computer and freaking out. Oh my God. Yeah. And like, it's a paper cut, buddy. But their reaction is, and I say it is what it is. You're not judging it. The first time I really appreciated that was before I did the direct primary care. So I was in urgent care, about to deploy to Middle East stuff in 2017, and sitting next to an older physician, and it was slow. So we were just chit-chatting, and he said, "Oh, you're deploying, huh, in the Army?" And I said, "Yep." And he said, "I deployed." And I was like, "Oh, I thought so. Tell me, like, what was it?" He goes, "Yeah, I was a grunt Marine." I was like, "All right." He said, "In Vietnam." And I was like, oh, wow. Like, I automatically assume that's probably a little more significant than what I'm doing. And he said, and he kind of got a little not misty-eyed, but he just kind of became a little solemn for a minute. He goes, "Yeah, it was interesting." He goes, we're sitting in a foxhole. We got brains all over us. And I look across at my buddy over there. And he said, "I knew he was useless. He was done." He goes, "And that's when I wanted to go to medical school." He was inspired to help.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
But
In the moment,
Yep.
yes.
But
Wow.
but that's where he started his whole medical career, and he was in his 70s. So the whole idea of it made me say, like, you saying that situation shouldn't bother me, but it does. Like, I don't know if it should or not. It's not for
Exactly.
me to judge.
That's why I don't like should. It's how we interpret the information that's given to us.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what's going on in that person's body or mind in that moment.
Another thought I've had, and not a judgment, but for some people, and I'm not making this up. I had a woman years ago who was like, "Yeah, I'm still really kind of mourning. My mom died and really struggling daily." And this woman was probably about 60 years old. And I was like, "Oh, gosh, what happened to Mom?" And she said, "Well, she had a prolonged whatever illness and died." I was like, "Well, how old was she?" She's like, "Well, 96. And I was like, "When did this happen?" She's like, "About 15 years ago." And I was like, "What?" Like, not to say move on, but like, wow, like this woman was struggling. And I was like, "But why is she struggling?" And I don't have the exact answer, but there's like 96-year-old people die. So what is it? And she ended up moving away, so I didn't get to dig deeper necessarily. But, I wonder, is it because she couldn't get over maybe Mom struggled and suffered, or maybe because they didn't get the words out or something? Why? It's not that Mom died, because Mom's going to die. Of course she is. But why is it so traumatic?
For sure.
For some people versus others. And,
Right.
So
Like how you,
yeah, and not that I have this grand mindfulness of things. I kind of do, but whatever. But no, I used to work in nursing homes, so I've seen death, and I might have mentioned this last time, but I also, in my pre-PA life, I worked at a children's hospital in Boston, working with kids with a lot of cystic fibrosis, and there was death there too. And I think I told you guys this, but I didn't put it together at the time. I was 22 years old, 23, but later on, made me think, old people that are dying sometimes are so scared and miserable and angry and bitter. Kids, they're usually chill. They're just like hugging, giving a kiss to a parent, and that sort of warmth. And people are like, "Oh God, that must have been the worst." I was like, that was the best time of my life. That was amazing working with that population, because it was so warm. The people that worked with them, we'd go up to the bedside to just visit, and sometimes as they were about to die, sometimes we would have the honor of being part of it. And it was always so damn warm. No one was like, "You didn't put out the trash and you didn't do this and damn it, whatever." And I said, "Why?" And I said, "I think the reason why is those families with those little kids, they knew reality. They were sick and potentially dying.
Right.
But some of us old people, like, I don't want to die. I'm not going to die. Like, what are you talking about?" And it's a disconnect between reality and what they imagined was real.
For sure.
So anyway, not to get all morbid on that.
No,
No,
it's
not at
good.
all.
This was another question that popped in here. So this question it's kind of a two-part.
Can't wait. We just
Well,
came
it
from
is
death.
about death. This
Okay.
is still actually related to that. It is a part of life. You know,
is.
it's something like you said, it's unavoidable. So the question is, what's the best way to usher yourself out of this life? Example, go into a forest and lie down. Ask hospice to administer 10 times the recommended amount of morphine. I can't believe that
can't do
was
yet.
a question. So say you're close to your end. What's the best way to usher yourself out of life to minimize your suffering and the
Yep.
suffering of those around you?
So I'm going to rewind a little bit and talk about health span versus lifespan. Oh, I'm going to flip you off here. So lifespan, sorry.
It won't be the first time today. Don't worry.
So lifespan is how many days you're on Earth.
Right.
So we don't know that day. Like I jokingly say, but like I could be this afternoon, car crash, whatever, heart attack. So there's lifespan, how many days, and then health span is how many days are good, healthy.
That you're actually healthy instead of miserable.
And they say potentially that discourse is potentially 10 years. So making up numbers, Sarah lives to 100. So from 90 to 100 sucks. Josh lives to 80. 70 to 80 is rough. And that's reality. That's average. Okay, so we have average versus normal versus optimal. Optimal, and this is maybe not going to be perfect for me, but I would love one day, whenever that is, could be today, go for a hike, drop dead. That would be perfect for me. And that's exactly what this person's asking. How do you make it smoother? Like, helicopter lands on me while I'm hiking. That'd be great.
Parachute not opening.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to jump out of anything. So health span. Focus on that proactively, preventatively, so that you can try to have them line up. And if they line up, cool. We don't need to worry about things. Now, what's the first one? Lay down in the woods. and
Lay
see what
down in the
happens.
forest and die, or have 10
Depends
times the
on what
amount of
animals are
morphine.
around.
That's true. It's
Dara's not going to want me to tell her, but when I lived in nursing homes, and I will say this, the patients, the residents, they were fine. They were lovely, sad sometimes with dementia and all these other things. The hard thing for me, the soul-sucking part of it, were the families. I remember one woman in particular named Mary. This poor thing she was so out of her mind. She would just literally lay in bed. She could not move. Lay in bed and moan. And occasionally, maybe once every other week, you would hear, "Let me die. Let me die." You know, it was haunting.
Yeah.
Right.
This is in Massachusetts. Her sister had her healthcare proxy stuff. She lived in Canada. Hadn't seen her in years. So you'd call and say, she's a full code. You call her sister, be like, oh, hey, just want to give you some updates. She seems to be in a lot of pain and suffering and this and that, whatever. And she'd say, yeah, she wants to be a full code. Like, well, let me explain what that means. Education. Let's do the informed decision making. Like, we're probably going to break all her ribs. You know, if we do CPR on her. And she, at best, will come back to this, if not less.
Right.
And she hadn't seen her sister in years. And I'm not judging, but it was heartbreaking to hear her say, do everything. It's like, ugh,
Right.
we have to. Okay. So back to the soul-sucking part of things and all that stuff. So there are times when health span and lifespan don't actually match up. And that's okay. Things happen. But let's try. And then with regard to, so I told Dara back then, I was like, Dara, if I lose and I shouldn't say this, but if I lose my mind someday, but my body's still working, it's terrible when I say this. I said, just bring me to the woods, strip me naked, put meat around me, and send me for a walk. And I said, and then I'll go pet the dogs, or whatever, the puppies. It's a little bit stark, but my point was don't let me rot in a bed for 10 years.
Well, exactly.
I think a lot of people are actually having that conversation. You
I
don't
think
want to be suffering.
We were talking about the fear of death, and I think that is the particular fear of death, is that death is going to be long and painful and suffering.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, that's our biggest, I think,
So-
when we think about it.
Well, and the other thing about the morphine, right, and that kind of stuff is, you know, and I would have to actively look into this, so assisted suicides and all that stuff, but we do it for our dogs. So
It's
I'm not
true.
encouraging it. I'm not
Right.
endorsing it, but I have said to family members, because I remember when, I think it was my grandmother. So this is pre-awareness of what I do now. But when she was sick and dying, two things happened. And at that point, I was like, this is weird. But one of my aunts, you know, she was not that sick and dying yet, but she wanted a donut. And here she is, 80 something years old and like kind of on her way out. And my aunt was like, she can't have that. She's going to get diabetes. And I was like, oh, that sounds weird. Like, are we really, like, at that point, who cares about diabetes, right?
Right.
And then the other thing was, when she was very ill, like kind of on her way out the door, they're using morphine. And someone's like, well, you don't want her to get addicted. And I'm like, wait, like, what are we talking about here?
It's on her way out, yeah.
I always tell people who are going through this with a family member is, I'm not saying to overdose or anything like that at all, but don't hold back. If it's time and they might need this stuff that's going to cause comfort, go for it.
Exactly. There was a follow-up question.
About death.
Yes.
Oh, God.
This person is in a morbid place, I guess. How do we put in place the realistic plan to exit?
Oh, that's a good one, actually. Well, they're all good, but
First of all, I did want to say
Sorry.
that, no, in regards to that question, I think one thing that not many people do is make it your choice. Have a medical power of attorney, have a living will.
That's the answer. That's what I was going to say. He cut me off.
I didn't know you were going to go with that. I like it.
So
All
the
right.
challenge is, what if I can't say what I want?
Right.
I get into a car accident, I'm in a coma,
Right.
or something happens. Then it's up to whoever,
Right.
probably your spouse if you have one, or whoever it is. And the problem is, a lot of times that person has no clue. So either they do what they would do, or they guess what you want.
Right.
And that's why the medical power of attorneys, or just talking to your people. And, you know, in the end, does this matter? Probably not. But do you want an open casket or a closed casket? I don't care. I'm going to be dead.
Right.
But so maybe you
hear
have
a lot. I
that.
don't
No,
care.
but my mom specifically wanted to be cremated, but have an open casket. So we did it. We honored her wishes. She
Right.
said that.
Right.
So yes, to honor the person because they're dead.
Right.
It doesn't really matter at that point, except how you send them off. And then we had a big party after her death, and it was wonderful, like that. That. So does that answer the question?
I think so, but I agree. I mean, it is.
Talking about it ahead of time, Sarah.
It is, and it's an important thing to do. Whether you have a living will, I think is very important because you never know when it's your last moment. To let those that are in your tribe, to use your words, your friends and family and loved ones say, these are my wishes. And I hear a lot like, I'm gone, you guys do what you want, but some have very specific. And so my other role in my world is I work at a nonprofit that raises funds for research for pediatric cancer. So we're talking to those families a lot about what are the next steps.
Yep.
So having that plan in many regards, what is going to happen to you, your body, what's going to happen to those, because you leave the people behind.
Yep.
And I think these are the people that are suffering. So if you have a plan, at least for me, looking on the outside in, I want to know when a loved one passes to make it easier. Maybe it's a selfish thing. Make it easier for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, think about this, Sarah. So if you and I are whatever, married or something like that, spouses, and I'm going to die, I don't care what happens to me, but I know you. And I know that you love the ocean. I could give you a gift and say, you know what, I really want to be cremated and spread me in the ocean. You know, if I told Dara, just drop me off in a dumpster, it's fine. Like, that's probably going to hurt her. Like, that's what the hell. I need a send off of some kind.
Yeah.
I don't care. I think we're on the same page about a lot of things, but you have to honor your others, the survivors.
For sure.
So you won't be here and you can be like, Psh, I'll be free. The lights will go out. The lights will turn on, whatever. Cool for you. But what about me who's suffering and mourning you?
Right.
So how do I mourn you better?
Right.
And to your point, yeah, if me, the deceased person, knows ahead of time that, all right, I like the people I'm leaving behind. I want to make it easier for them.
Right.
I could say, if you guys decide to do something different, cool, don't care. But give them a gift.
Right.
Plan it out. Just like a vacation. Where do you guys want to go?
That is really nice, not to use specifics, but there was someone that passed and it was, I want to be cremated on a whole bunch of different golf courses. And what's cool is you get to actually travel and remember that person with you. So it can be a little quote unquote vacation and experience the journey.
And that's why I said, like, I think I've said this is when it's my time, I don't want like a sad, quiet, tearful eating your food at our house or whatever. Like, nah,
You want an Irish party.
Have
That's
a party.
right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
I want people to be sobbing, miserable. I was so important in this life, and I want everyone to know it.
Why? No. I do. There are a couple other questions here. First one, let's get a little bit lighter. How do you, I mean, you've mentioned all this stuff that you've worked in urgent care from all your history. How do you do stress relief from all the patients telling you all their stories?
So physical activity is a good one, which I don't always do. Some days, and I had to learn this a couple years ago, some days you need to offer yourself some grace. There is a time and a place where the demand of you must do this, which is internal, versus not today. So there's that. So giving yourself a break, which I'm not awesome at, but because I'm pretty driven. And then physical activity is the other one. And then for me, and I haven't been doing much of this, and actually Dara said I'm going to drop her off at home later on, and I have to take one of our dogs for a hike today. So I'm going to go for a little hike, and just, she said, don't go with anybody, be alone, except for Teddy. He's my buddy. So,
Okay.
Nice. Thank you.
so it's that thing. Or also it's a blessing and a curse, right? I'm married to a functional nurse. So I go home and we chat like, oh, hey, Jimmy said this today, whatever. And like, it's the sounding board.
Right.
So either you want someone who has nothing to do with what you do, or they do the same darn thing.
Second one, with all the experience that you have, one of the main differences that we've talked about in direct primary care is a focus on preventative care versus, just kind of like the broader coverage of traditional health system. What would you say, working in everything that you've worked, that you see are the differences, the main differences between the direct primary care and the traditional model?
Sure. And by traditional, we're talking about insurance-based. Pretty much.
Insurance-based, yeah.
Yep. That's so, all right, we might have talked about this last time, but medicine versions, medical community. So medicine, the original was the town doc, who was named Billy or something, Dr. Billy. And Billy knew your family and didn't say, you can't come to me because you don't have the right amount of money. They'd say, well, fine, bring me some chicken eggs. But there was there was definitely a relationship. The downfall is, what did I say, Billy? Billy might have been a hack and was like, Sarah, you have a headache? I'm going to cut off your foot. And you're like, what? Wait a minute. And they're like, no. Evil spirit in the foot. Let's take that thing off. And then you die of an infection. So the downfall was no standardization. So medicine 1.0.
Right.
Then we go to medicine 2.0. And that was, first system's horrible. We need to standardize. So we came up with schools, medical schools, PA schools, whatever it's going to be. We have boards, we have exams, we have studies. Wonderful. But we gave up the relationship. And now, like I said earlier, I made reference, everybody's the same. So you come in and there's an algorithm. That's insurance-based medicine. The positive is it's evidence-based science. The downfall is everybody's the same. You're a number.
Right.
So you come in and you say, my symptoms are A, B, C. And they go, all right, you get plan D. You're like, I thought I heard about plan E. And they say, nope, not for you. D. And if it doesn't work in 6 months, then we'll cut off your foot. So I think there's limitations with that one because where's the relationship?
Right.
So then potentially medicine 3.0 is why don't we just take the best of the best?
Right.
Why don't we have a relationship and evidence-based medicine and use it together?
Right. Right.
So I think
like
that's the answer.
I like that one.
Totally agree. It was so funny. So I had my first colonoscopy like 5 years ago, something maybe longer. And before they put me under, they were like, so let's talk about dental insurance.
What?
I kid you not. I'm like,
You're like, wait, which hole are you going into?
I'm glad you know my humor because that's exactly where I was going with it. I was like, what? Like,
Cover your mouth, Sarah.
exactly. I was like, this is gross.
Or
Like,
if it was after the procedure, you could have said, did you find teeth?
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a reason I woke up through that. I was like, this better be what I think it's going to be. So, but I totally
terrifying.
agree. It is terrifying. But he was trying to get me to have some humor in it, which kind of scared me a little bit before you go under. But I agree with you completely. It's the relationship plus have something to talk about. And I hate being a number. I think most of us want to be heard and valued and really listen to what's going on.
Right.
Because the headache could be many different reasons.
Of course. Well, and as we do this, one of you made reference to this, but the insurance-based model really took medicine 2.0 to the max, and it does this algorithm, and it never tries to anticipate things in a way. It tries to identify current things and then slow them down. So when you go to the insurance-based practice and you have high blood pressure, you go into medicine, which potentially is appropriate, but who reverses it? Like essentially nobody. I'm going to just generally say that. So if you have a friend with thyroid disorder or cancer or whatever, how many of them reverse it? They might get treatment. They might manage. What is management? What is management? It's slowing it down.
Right.
And then you say, well, with all the brain power we have in this current culture, can we reverse it? And the answer is, well, yes. So why don't we do it? And they said, well, I talked to the patient for 3 minutes. And they didn't want to reverse their diabetes. They didn't want to do, I just told them to diet and exercise. And they came back and hadn't dieted and exercised. You're like, well, what does that actually mean? They're like, I don't know. Go Google it. You know, that it's not going to work. So therefore, it's just easier. And with 8 minutes or so, maybe it is more appropriate. Because either you're not going to do anything and it progresses, or do you just slow it down? And that's my frustration. That's the part that I was like, but we can reverse some of these things. We can fix them.
Right, exactly.
Right.
What the heck?
Yeah.
You know, if your alignment is off in the car, you can replace the tires, which you'll have to replace the tires again and again, or you can get an alignment. Holy crud.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Imagine that. Fix the alignment.
Okay.
There you go.
It is funny how you said Google it. And also just being another number. I had to look it up. A recent study from the National Institutes of Health. Surveys found that a large portion of people in the United States use the internet to search for information on medical symptoms they experience. And about 1/3 of people in the United States self-diagnose with online information. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? And not to mention, over the next 10 years is going to be incredible, because now with AI coming out to help the medical field as well. I mean, isn't that just taking the numbers position and just putting steroids in it?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But that's not, I'm going to say it's not necessarily a bad thing, let me say. So again, in the tribe, if Dara was the shaman and I have a knee pain, I'll go talk to her. And I trust her. She trusts me because I make baskets. Sarah's the hunter. All that stuff. There was the trust. And now we've gone to the automaton culture, and it's not just medicine. It's everything. When you want to call a plumber, first, a lot of people, and I've heard people say this, oh, they're all trying to screw me and they're going to they're rich. I've never seen one poor. Like, no, they're humans trying to do something that they're really good at, but there's no trust. So if you do know a trusted plumber, oh my gosh, you just call up Jimmy. We actually have a patient named Jimmy who's a plumber. But you call up Jimmy and you say, hey, listen, what do you think? And they say, well, I think this. You say, great, do it. There's trust. So instead now I just Google who's a good plumber. Okay, I'll pick this one. And some nice people show up, but I don't trust them. And they do their stuff and whatever. So it's everything.
Right.
Whatever, your insurance salesman or your whatever it is, unless you actually do develop a relationship. And then if you do, boom, trusted. A realtor or whatever it's going to be.
Right.
So back to the AI thing, if we don't have the tribal trust thingy, then you're left with just showing up as a number. You can Google and self-diagnose, or there is some really cool tools. Like AI is pretty amazing, and it terrifies me because the joke would be like, I don't need to have a job anymore because they'll just do it. We can have AI do a radio show, you know, and in some ways they might have some better variety, not than you guys, but than the other radio shows. Or they might be able to target the audience more specifically because it's live and it's doing these things. So it's pretty cool, terrifying. But is that better than self-diagnosing? And is that better than the automaton? I don't know. But it's not better than human relationships. And if someone says, you know,
catch-22.
we humans are not perfect. Actually, I had this thought months ago. I was with one of my physician colleagues, and we're chatting on a hike. And we're like, I want to know all of this. And this person knows, you know, social media. This person seems to know everything. Not literally. And I said, yeah. But I really had to think about it. I said, they prepped for a show. They didn't just know all that information. And, like, I want to know everything about the body. It's like, I think that's godlike status, and like we just don't have that, and we're not supposed to. So there are mysteries that we will not know, and that's okay. So we don't do perfect care of other humans, like in any industry, but for medicine, like I'm not perfect. I'm not going to diagnose everything perfectly every time, and you know people get sick, people die, infections happen. There's so many different things. So the goal is not to have a perfect, healthy, medical person. Like that just doesn't exist.
Right.
But if you trust and they're going in with good intention and a good heart,
Right.
it's a wonderful relationship.
Right. And I think that's what you definitely don't get, especially when you Google, I have a headache. What's going to happen? Oh, I'm going to die.
I don't know. I had the reverse happen. I kept going to doctors, and they were not specialists, but into a hospital, and I was misdiagnosed over and over and over. And if I had gone to Google, I actually would have found the correct solution
Right.
there. So, I mean, it is AI to me, and technology is so catch-22. There are so many pros and cons to it. I miss the human element of it. It's like these self-driving cars. They scare the crap out of me.
I've seen some in some different cities. It's bizarre.
It is. And people are like, no, it's so much better. I'm like, no, it is so scary. Like, I get that they have a quick response time. And I'm like, but it's not a human. That you don't have the emotional, oh my God, so it is very
Well, and what you bring up there, Sarah, is maybe like, we're leaving our evolution. We're leaving the tribe. So I don't want to drive next to a person. I want to drive next to a machine. Like, well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And why am I driving? Well, I'm trying to get someplace. Okay, cool. That's a reality. I don't live in my little village.
Yeah.
But I get like this too. Like where we live now, we call it the retreat. We're up this hill, like we're alone, which is great. But why do I crave being alone? Well, because my tribe's dispersed. We love our neighbors. It's a wonderful neighborhood. But the postage stamps, the people on top of people, but they're alone.
Yeah.
Right.
And how many people? And I just had this reflection back to years ago. But like how many people live in this neighborhood with all the little houses and they don't know their neighbors.
Right.
So I pictured that, and Darren and I were in Massachusetts. We had this feeling it was a wonderful neighborhood. I said, we looked down the street, we're going for a walk with the dogs. We said, it's like we live in stalls, like horses, and nobody leaves their stall. So they'll go home, have a beautiful home, have the beautiful, whatever, but they don't have the relationships.
For sure.
Unless you go and party hard with that person or this person, but otherwise there's no being.
I agree with you. I'm in a current situation where I don't know my neighbors and I miss it and I'm craving it. And so does my son. Like, he's like, I want to go on a bike ride with somebody.
Yep.
I think about when you go to jail or prison, if you misbehave, you get put in isolation.
Yep.
And that is not
Torture.
good. It
Josh,
is
is
torture.
she talking from experience?
I think so.
It sounded like it. Sarah's been in the
I think
hole.
so. She has. Solitaire.
I can neither
Yeah.
confirm nor deny. But we do. We crave that.
Do you have another, actually a couple other questions, but I'm going to start with if you can explain the difference between New Med
Yep.
and Ascent Medicine.
So-
And how, and if anyone can utilize both of these.
So, NewMed Direct Primary Care, NUMED. So, newmedprimarycare.com. But that's the wellness part, the maintenance, the primary care. It's taking care of all of the things. There's a teeny bit of overlap, but for Ascent Concierge Medicine, which is AscentMedicine.com, that one we set up as the deep dive. And I jokingly call it, I think I said it last time with you guys, but taking off the training wheels. So if you said, I'm 50 years old, by 80, I still want to be fully functional. So if we take care of things now, cool. That's a wonderful thing. But potentially if we want to go forward and say, how do we more proactively? So like I said, for me, if my cholesterol markers are medium on paper, but it's not one size fits all. And if my plaque markers on that CT angiogram were high, oh yeah, I'd be on some statins right now and some other things, still working on nutrition and all the other stuff. Because my marker was low, I'm not worried, but I should still work on all the other maintenance things. So it's the deep dive of things. That's the difference between them. So Ascent does a lot more of the proactive longevity decades. So don't think a year,
Kinda do
think
both.
decades.
Right. Gotcha. Also, you were speaking about the summits, of course, that we
yes.
talked about. Are you having anything coming up? Any events coming up regarding the summits that you referred to?
Yes. So thanks for reminding me because I get a little blabbery. Actually, on Thursday, we're doing a little intro masterclass, kind of going over the why of all of the little components. So yeah, on the AscentMedicine.com, there's I think it's a Master Your Aging class drop down.
And I believe we actually have, I see my producer threw up the QR code on the top right of the screen for anybody who would like to check this out. But continue.
Yeah, and it's not a moneymaker or anything like that. So, I mean, the class was like $35. But I was talking with Dave the other day and Andy, the other doc, and saying like, oh, if anyone from the radio show comes, we should have a little discount code. So it's $35, but we did Ascent, Ascent K4CO, all lowercase. And they get half off, which we thought would be fun.
Heck yeah.
Just something. And yeah, we're going to have we've had events there before. It's pretty impressive little snacks and a couple drinks or whatever, and just chatting, kind of like what we're doing now almost, except that will be more of a presentation of the different summits, the why of who cares.
It's important. Everyone cares about it. That's why it's been ongoing on the news till death do us part. It's every day, but it is very important.
Well, but even there, just the harp on that again is what's in the news. And the news is you should be afraid, have fear, and then go in and get the Band-Aids put on.
It is a lot of the Band-Aids.
But nobody talks about what we're talking about here, which is like your relationships, your people, the why. Like, who cares if you live till 80? In the joke I would have, not a joke, but like the 30-year-old guys, no, I'm not going to wear a helmet. No, I'm not going to do this, that, whatever. Like, that's fine. But why? I don't want to live forever. And I would say back to them, oh, don't worry. We'll keep you alive.
Right.
And I say that, and it's true. I remember in a nursing home, there was a 41-year-old guy. And man, this guy was tortured, but he had a brain injury. I think it was from cocaine. So, I mean, he had a tracheostomy, he had feeding tubes, he was bedridden. So he had brain injury, but he could still talk, and he was kind of funny. And he'd be like, man, those days were great. But he suffered so badly, and his feeding tube would get all infected, and his dad would come in and say, full everything. And the guy's name was Chris, and Chris would be like, let me die. Like, nope. So he's got a long life ahead of him. Lifespan, health span.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a big one. And it's not for me to judge his life. I have no idea. That's for not for him to decide even, which is crazy. But yeah, anyway. So as a culture, we don't have those conversations. Nobody hears about people suffering for 40 years in a nursing home. And again, that could be a wonderful life for someone. I'm not saying it's bad.
Right.
Unless you're saying, please let me die.
Exactly.
So all those types of things. So.
Well, no, I agree. It's going back to the why. It's the relationship, and why are we having these conversations, which is also going back to technology. It is a really great thing and a really bad thing. It is a way. I loved it when, Facebook, Instagram, social media, all of this is to connect people. I'm like, is it really connecting people? It is sharing of ideas. But when I get on Instagram, and it has its pros, right?
Yep.
It's funny. It is sometimes educational, but am I really like, wow, I need to now go reach out to that person because I'm looking at their golden retriever doing tricks with the ball. No, I am not doing that. It is for a brief Band-Aid fix or a brief moment of whatever I'm needing, a dopamine, serotonin moment. But the connection is what we're doing here.
So, and think about it, Sarah, though, to interrupt you. No, but who is it connecting? People that are connected or people that are isolated? Yeah. So when you're at home and maybe you're having a tough time, maybe you're a single parent, kids are finally freaking in bed. You haven't talked to another human, an adult in a while, which can be wonderful, talking to the kids, if you're present. You haven't taken care of yourself. You feel like garbage. You're exhausted. You don't have that connection. So how do you connect? Well, you can watch those golden retrievers, sing and dance and do whatever. And it's funny. You feel that warmth for a moment. You feel connected.
Yeah. You feel that euphoria.
But are we really connected?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Maybe not. Whatever. That's for the other person to decide.
Well,
but
yeah, for me, it's a quick fix. It's I feel better for 10 seconds, and then I shut off my Instagram thing, and I'm like, and I'm alone. So I mean,
yes.
But it is. What's the longevity? To go back to your point. Is to be, for me, it's being out. And even when I'm not with people, I like going for hikes or for walks, or it rejuvenates. But again, it's very individualized. It's what kind of nurtures who you are and gives you that extra oomph.
Well, and you said this, maybe it's going to the bank on a Saturday morning and reading the paper and talking to Jenny behind the counter and, waving over the bill every Saturday. Like, do they really need that much banking exchange? Right. Or is it... It's a connection.
Exactly.
Nowadays, they'd be sitting at home, doing their posts or looking at their thing. What do they call it? Doom scrolling. You know, you can go through your social media. I've done this.
Yeah.
And you're like, I should have been in bed an hour ago. What did I do? This is terrible. And sometimes it's worth it. Maybe you're decompressing as you're doing this, and you're like, I was stuck thinking about this negative thing, and maybe. And again, it depends. Maybe I should get off my butt and take care of the negative thing, or maybe I should just let it unwind for a little bit and laugh at the. I told Daryl last night I was watching a polar bear try to catch a beluga whale, and eat it. And I was like, really? This is amazing.
I want to watch that.
I know.
I
So
know.
Ethan would love it too. That's
I
great.
know. So I mean, some of it, like, is that educational? Yes, but then you know, especially for me, if I'm doing anything on social media, I try not to. But if I'm doing it, and you watch like police videos, and they're talking about this negative thing, and it makes you kind of. You find out that like my heart rate's up a little bit, and I'm like, when was the last time I was ever pulled over and harassed? And thankfully for me, you know, never. And some people, that is unfortunate. That's not true. And we talk about social justice things, like, or do I just focus on my real life here and take care of the people around me and be more proactive for my community?
Right.
You'll definitely be a lot more happier doing that option. Yep.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
I had another quick question because you had talked about your mentors.
Yep.
Because now I'm sure you are a mentor to a lot of people. For those that either have been in the industry for 30 years,
Yep.
10 years, what about those that are now getting into it? What are your pieces of advice?
So I guess the professional side of things, which is also personal, but the professional side of things, I learned this from the military. There's people that are leaders. There's people that are managers, and there's people that are doers. And then when I first joined, I direct commissioned as an officer, as a PA, medical person. And my cousin at the time was the one who helped me get in. He's long-term. He's a warrant officer. But I was like, oh, I come in as a private. And he said, no, as an officer, as a first lieutenant. And I said, well, I don't want to like be better than people. He goes, dude, no one's better than anybody else. They're different jobs. So you, as a leader in a medical community, you have to disseminate and create the plan. So officers lead, NCOs are enlisted, senior enlisted, they manage. And then there are enlisted that do. So, I mean, that was a great lesson right from the start. I appreciated it. No one's better than anyone else. You could be a general or a private, equally important. They just have different jobs. So guess what? In the world, in all jobs, there are leaders, managers, and doers. If you're meant truly to be a doer, don't be a leader.
Right.
It's uncomfortable. You're going to feel like garbage, and you're going to do a crappy job. Same thing as if you're a leader and you're trying to do, you'll be bored, you'll be frustrated, and all that stuff.
And I've experienced that too, where even like they promote doers to management and they're terrible at it.
Yep. And they say, can I go back?
Right.
So, and that's not a judgment thing, because
No.
there are doers who are so freaking happy. And there's a lot of leaders that are miserable. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you people? Like, why aren't we like zebras? Let's go play and run around. So with that in mind, that's what I would say to someone is, who are you? Because I have a lot of PA colleagues who love doing. They show up, they'll do surgery, they'll do some different things, and they clock out, go home. And that's fine. They're the pit stop, change the tire, do whatever. And that's okay. They're really happy, maybe happier than me. And then there's other people who maybe manage a hospital. That would drive me insane. And then there are the leaders that are putting thoughts out there. They're not better or worse. They're just putting out ideas and trying to change things.
I totally agree. Have you read the book, The E-Myth?
No,
It's an interesting
I don't know
one.
that one.
The E, so it's capital E. It's the entrepreneurial myth, essentially.
Okay.
And it's largely talking about what you were discussing. It's when you're an entrepreneur, you think, I have this idea and I can do all of it.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people do. And the truth is we can't. You're either the idea person or the doer or the manager. And it's very rare that you will find someone that does it all. And when you sometimes are thrown into, I think for me personally, I know when I'm not good at it. Like if you say, go figure out how that computer works, hard pass.
Yep.
I know I can't do it.
Which is a wisdom. You figured it out.
Well, because I can't do it and I don't want to do it is the other thing. I think a lot of people, when they are forced into a job, they're like, no, you're going to learn how to do this. Then bad things start to happen. Then you start resenting and not wanting to do it. It's to find that right niche and start to flourish and say, hey, I'm really good. And I now need to kind of fill in these other spots to make this be successful.
So I'm going to point out, though, Sarah, that's a wisdom, because a lot of people don't know what they're not good at. So instead, they say, I'm a leader. Everybody will do it this new way. a lot of people talk about that. We have a new boss and she's destroying everything.
Right.
Like, ugh. So you saying, I'm just making, but you're not good at computer figuring out stuff and you don't want to. Because some people say, I'm not good at it. I'll figure it out. And they hate it. So you could figure it out. You're not a moron. But you've decided that your strengths are elsewhere.
Yes.
And that reminds me, probably 15, close to 20 years ago in Massachusetts, one of my medical assistants, Chrissy, was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I had all these lab things I had filled out for patients. And I was like, I'm just going to fax them. She's like, I can fax it. I'm like, well, so can I. She goes, yeah, but you should do something else that I can't do. And I was like, huh. So it's not that I can't fax, but maybe I shouldn't. Now I do all the faxes. Right. But the idea of what should I do, and that's true for life. Right. There's what can I do? And a lot of people say, I can do this. I can do that. I could pull it off. I could work 80 hours a week, but should I?
For sure. It's the opportunity cost when you start to get into that as well. It is when you become sometimes a CEO.
Yep.
I hear this a lot from bosses or executive directors, whatever it is, that I'm not working the business. I'm not working in it. I'm working for it. And so I think that element of disconnect can happen pretty frequently. So you see it in every situation, whether you brought up the military, you get really know your strengths and know your weaknesses. And I figure it out very much on the job. I'm like, man, I really don't like data processing. I really enjoy being out in the world. So I think it comes from experience. I think a lot of times you don't know it until you are actually thrown into it.
Well, and potentially one thing to consider also is I don't know everything. So, people are like, oh, you need to know exactly who you are. That is hard to figure out. So my downfall is I say, well, I can protect my family and my tribe. I'll do it all. And sometimes to a detriment. So, and there are times when you have a project and it's due and you have a due date. And sometimes you just have this awakening or this thing like, I'm not going to pull it off. What's going to happen? The world going to end? I didn't file my taxes in time. Oh, well, pay a penalty. Like, you're not going to die. They're not going to come and arrest you. Don't put it off for years. I'm just saying, if you miss April 15th or whatever it is, there's the 20th, like, what, whoop-de-doo. Versus, I'm going to yell at the family. I'm going to do these horrible things. Not that I do that, but just, knowing the limits. And maybe another little segue, but one thing I talk a lot about, and I learned this through psychedelic medicine and stuff like that, is, and there was a reference when we first started, but there's a mind-body connection. And I might have said this last time. Did I talk about the bear?
I don't remember the bear.
So I think I'll be cute. I'm going to take Sarah outside, blindfold her, twist her around a few times. Then
cool.
Whip off the blindfold, and she's staring at a grizzly. And
I
she's
would
like,
love it.
What
Let's
the
go do that.
heck? No. And I often say, like, you're not going to say, did I eat breakfast? Did I poop this morning? No,
well, you just did. If
well,
you
I
didn't.
did.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
No, she's going to haul butt down the street like an Olympian. Mind, body are doing the same thing. She's awesome. And then another time she's in here, I blindfold her, strap her to that chair, and then whip off the blindfold, and she's in the room with a grizzly. And all of a sudden she's making these ungodly moany sounds and fluids coming out of everywhere. And she can't do anything. And I say, but the stimulus is the same. It's a bear. What's different? And the difference is her mind is running down the street. Her body is still. That disconnect feels bad.
Right.
So when you go around your day and you're like, I just feel like I got a pit in my stomach. Like there's something. Figure it out.
For sure.
And that happened a couple of years ago with Dara. I was at the house and I was like, I feel anxious. I don't know what it is. Like there's something. And then a moment later, she's like, aren't you supposed to be on a call with someone? I was like, So that mind-body connection. But I'll actually put a third one in there. So potentially there's the energy, spirit, soul. So what is the brain or the mind? And that's your computer. That's your remote controller.
Right.
And then the body is the car, whatever it is. Who's controlling the remote controller? And that's you. So when you're 2 years old, you're like, it's a stick. I'm going to pick it up and play with it because it's a unicorn. You're free. And then someone comes over and says, wait, it might have dog poop on it. Oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. You're like, no, it's a unicorn. They're like, no, it's a poop stick. You're learning, and that's the ego. You learn to strengthen the ego and the super ego. Don't touch the stick. And that's where we start to grow our guilt too.
Right.
And don't do that. You look stupid in public when you do that. And some of those things are appropriate, like wear pants. But some of it is don't talk to that person. They might not like you. You know,
Right.
so that's strong. So what
Right.
happens is we forget this part, but the little energy part, call it your spirit, you know, the Sarah, the Josh, like, and I call it the little child side. So the one that played with the sticks or liked to rub a little doggy, all those things, we forget that one because now I'm an adult and I'm in our culture and I'm a CEO or president, whatever it is, and I do this stuff because I'm important. This little child's still in there. So there's a battle between the id, the child, and then the super ego, the real witch. If you don't have a balance, then you become not quite right. So you still have that mind-body connection.
Right.
But then what's the little child like doing?
Right.
And I don't do extremely well with this, but like, does children like to play? How much are we playing? So when we talk about how do you motivate people or inspire them, perhaps, is like, remember, like, what did you used to like to do? And some people like, I used to like to, whatever, ride horses. When was the last time you rode a horse? Like, well, it's been about 2 decades. I did have a man once, still a patient of ours. He was going through some ketamine therapies, dealing with some PTSD and stuff. And he said to me, this a couple of years ago, but he said, you know, I love to cook. I was like, oh, and he's in his 60s. And I said, oh, that's good. He says, I haven't been in the kitchen in like 30 years. And I was like, oh, he goes, I went in it last night and made some food. And I was like, that's amazing. That was him listening to the child and doing the fun stuff.
Right. Right.
I totally agree. I talk about that all the time. And if I'm being
Do you say id and super ego?
I call it the mind, heart, tummy. I call it the little Sarah. I know exactly where she sits. She is literally on my belly button.
Yeah.
And when I ignore her, she gets really loud. And it's like, hey, I've been telling you that I am traumatized and I'm really pissed.
Yep.
And then I will actually get a stomach ache. I'd be like, okay, I am listening now.
Disconnect.
It's so true. So when, especially being in health, when you have those three, the mind, body, do you say to your patients, what is more real? Is it going to be what your brain is telling you or what your body is telling you?
I think the first step is to remember that there's that energy, you know, so this is just the body. It's going to fall apart. It'll break. We want to preserve it as long as possible, but it will be dead.
It's designed to.
Yeah. And you, Sarah, talking about earlier, you know, with your friend going to the golf courses, was your friend's body, not the cremated body, but, you know, were they standing there and hanging out with you? No, but you probably felt some energy. You know, there's probably a positive warmth. What is that?
Right.
Maybe that's the energy part, you know, so maybe the mind, the brain was gone. Maybe the body is gone, but you know, their memory, their energy is still there. Why aren't we playing with that now while we're conscious and all that stuff? Like, what the heck? Do it.
I agree. Listen to all the different parts. And
Yep.
if you can find that harmony.
One thing you might do this. Sarah seems pretty self-aware, but I can't remember who it was. But there was a podcast I was listening to with an older gentleman in his, I think, 84. But he was talking about I can't remember what the heck he was doing. It might have been on Peter Attia, but he was talking about some sort of psychologist. But he retired at whatever 65 and went to a deep depression, and that's when he realized, I'm not done. So now at 84, he's still writing books. He's talking to people. But one thing he would do is maybe once a year is have a pretty large, but a friend family gathering of all the most interesting people that he knows. And then they would get to meet each other, make these amazing connections, but they're his connections. So he's inviting the tribe in.
Right.
So I said to Dara, we have to start thinking about that. We should be doing that. Now, it doesn't have to be this year. Maybe it's next year. Maybe it's the year after. But it's so not a stressor, but it's something we should do. So you talk about the neighbors, and we've done that with our neighbors a couple of times. We've been there a year and a half, and I think we had 2 parties or whatever, and like it was so nice. And she was saying, yeah, you get crazy, you gotta have the perfect food and get all this stuff, but like nobody cares.
No one does care.
Nope.
Have M&Ms and pretzels. It's great.
Yep. So maybe you need a neighbor party.
There you go.
Just invite them over
I do.
and show them how cool you are.
Exactly.
It is getting to that time, but I do have one final question for you. This goes to somebody out there who, you know, they've lived their life for quite a while and everything, but they've never really kind of taken care of themselves, gone to the doctor, you know. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who's just like haven't had a physical in years, you know, anything like that. So, and they start thinking, man, you know, I need to start. I need to start caring for myself, figuring out what I need to do. So besides calling you, 719-735-8377 at Ascent Concierge Health. What would you tell them? What are their steps? What is the first steps to start getting in touch with their health?
So, and I could talk another hour about this, but Sarah's story about little Sarah sitting on the belly button is recognize it. So when you go to bed and you realize your heart rate's up and you're feeling anxious, or when you go to work and you got dread and you're like, ugh, I hate this. What are you doing? Don't quit your job yet, but just having an awareness that I want something different. And I used to say to my kids when they were little, stop aggravating, stop whining. And I remember getting so frustrated. This is before my awareness now, but saying, why are you doing the same thing over and over? Like it's ridiculous. I'm getting mad. So doing the same thing, how do we change it? And people might say, I don't know what to do. That's okay. The first step is to recognize the current situation and saying, I want change. Sarah talking earlier about going outside for a walk in the sunshine and in the trees. What did your ancestors see? The sunshine and the trees. Like, that's an ancestral thing. Talk about grounding, kick off your shoes, touch the grass, these things. So, I mean, there are studies that confirm that us sitting in this box right now with straight lines everywhere, what in nature is a straight line? Nothing.
Yeah.
So we sit in our cubicle all day long and just grind it out. And I was productive today, but angry and sad and all that stuff. So go outside. That's a start. And it sounds silly, but yeah, if you have raging diabetes, that's not going to fix it. But it is a start, actually, because then as you figure out little Sarah, little Josh, whatever, and you think, I want to be better for me, not for anyone else. None of the judgment there.
Right.
I want to feel better so I can die happy. So, if I die alone with $1 billion in the bank and so sad, to me, that's a failure. If I have nothing in the bank and warmth around me, and people saying, we're going to miss you, like success, job well done.
Right.
That's a life.
I do. I want to challenge people that have listened to this today. Awareness, yes. I would encourage people to accept as well. Do not have any shame, judgment, guilt where you are. It is where you are, which is perfectly amazing. So you accept where you are, maybe stop living in denial, and then be proactive and go do something about it. Because I feel like so many times people are stuck in so many different elements of their world. And what you were describing day after day, that is insanity.
Yes.
Expecting something different, but you're doing the same damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
Stop.
Well,
so be aware, accept, and be proactive and go do something about it.
One quick thing I'll say, because I know we got to wrap it up, but
Yeah.
I tell people not what you judge my life to be, but if I had the truth, some celestial truth about my own life, and it was a path, I'm not exactly on the path. It's like driving on the highway. You just turn the wheel a teeny bit. So I wake up one day and I'm like, I'm a little bit off. Okay, true the wheel and fix it.
Right.
Or affect it. I overcorrected. Go the other way. Some people, so that sounds great. You can always course correct. Some people wake up with a heart attack. They're way off the path. And that's hard. I have patients that have done this, and that sucks. But they're not dead. You can still come back. It might take a while. You might not get all the way back, but you can still true that wheel and kind of come along. So that's what I say is the awareness first that I want change, and then go out there. And if you can't find it, keep looking. And if you can't find it, talk to someone else. I think we're good to talk to, but whatever. It could be your priest or your bartender or the hike in the woods alone might be what you need. And then when you're ready, you say, well, I keep saying diabetes, whatever. Diabetes. Can I affect that? If the answer is no, okay. Cross it off the list of things to correct, manage it, and work on the next thing, whether it's relationships or whether it's your vision or whatever. So yeah, there. I'll stick with that one. So true the wheel.
I love it.
I like that.
Can you handle the truth?
Well, thank you very much for tuning in. This has been the Sunday Sit Down. We've been sitting down with Adam Courchaine. He is with Ascent Concierge Health. And you've had his information down at the bottom, scrolling throughout the entire interview. If you did catch the end of the interview, we want to see the rest, of course, do know that it's going to be on our social media platforms, including Facebook and LinkedIn for the next month. But after that, it is going to be on our YouTube forever. So make sure that you subscribe to K4CO Radio. And thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
The chat.
I agree.
Yeah.
If anyone wants more information in the class that's coming up this Thursday, the 17th, Master Your Aging.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool. So the tagline is, if you knew the cause of your death, what would you do to prevent it? That was very much in line what we were talking about. So you can go to ascentmedicine.com for more information on that class. Again, it's this Thursday, April 17th.
Yep.
Correct?
Drop down,
Yes.
Master Your Aging class.
Awesome. Okay. So for those of you that want more, which you should, ooh, I said the word. I hope that you will take advantage of this. There, I'll change up the language there. Thank you, Adam. It's wonderful
Thanks,
having
guys.
you in.
It is.
You too. Good
It
energy.
is, definitely.
Yes.
We're going to get you back to our regular scheduled programming. Do make sure to tune in between 5 and 7 tonight every Sunday. It is 1940s all the way through the year 2000. So a nice little K4CO back in time. Thanks again for listening, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.
Happy Sunday.